Welcome back, everybody. One of the biggest stories this offseason was Coach Prime, Deion Sanders' opening address to his new Colorado football team. Speaking to the newly inherited roster, Sanders implied that he would be bringing a whole new crop of talent in through the transfer portal.
We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis. Okay. So I want y'all to get ready to go ahead and jump in that portal and do whatever you're going to get. Because the more you jump in, the more room you make.
It was heavily suggested that a lot of these transfers would be coming over from Jackson State, where Sanders had coached for 2 seasons prior. I don't think anyone was prepared for the sheer volume of transfers who would eventually end up in Boulder, though. A mass exodus ensued following his speech, allowing Coach Prime to go out and gather a transfer portal class of more than 40 players from across the country. Now that we've had a chance to see this roster in action in 3 games, let's take a look back and see how these guys have performed and which players have exceeded expectations. Before we do that though, I want to say thank you to our audience for supporting our recent videos. We did a preseason breakdown of every SEC team that got a ton of engagement, so thank you for that. We've already missed on almost all of our predictions for those teams, but that's just college football. If you like videos like this, check out our channel and please consider subscribing. We're coming up on 500 subs, which will be a huge milestone for us. We appreciate your support, and now back to the video. The transfer portal class that Coach Sanders brought in can appropriately be split into 6 categories. The first of which is the guys he brought along from Jackson State. There are some high-profile guys in this class, to include their starting quarterback Shedeur Sanders and cornerback/wide receiver Travis Hunter. Sanders has been an early riser in Heisman polling and has captivated the college football audience with his big play ability. Shedeur is completing nearly 80% of his passes through 3 games and has thrown 10 touchdowns to only 1 pick. He's also second in the NCAA in passing yards, only to Michael Penix Jr., and he's on pace to shatter Colorado's existing passing yards, touchdowns, and completions record. Many wondered if Sanders would be able to make the jump from Jackson State to the Pac-12 successfully, but he's actually played better than ever against greater competition. If he continues to play at this high level, he will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft and look to become the face of a pro franchise very soon. Shockingly, Shedeur Sanders isn't even the most hyped player who chose to join Deion at Jackson State. The number 1 overall recruit from the 2022 class, Travis Hunter, shocked the college football world when he chose to join Jackson State and Coach Prime as a recruit. Unsurprisingly, he also chose to make the move over to Colorado this offseason with Coach Sanders, where he has shouldered a full workload as a full-time wide receiver and cornerback for the Buffs early in 2023. He's distinguished himself as one of the best in the nation at both positions, which is rarely seen in today's game. In Colorado's Week 1 matchup against heavily favored TCU, Travis played a staggering 152 snaps. This translates to roughly 87% of the team's total snaps, including special teams reps. Hunter has continued to play the majority of offensive and defensive snaps through Week 2 and 3. On offense, he's totaled 16 catches for 213 yards despite exiting early in Week 3 against Colorado State with an injury. Defensively, Hunter has been even better and rarely targeted, which is a clear sign of good cornerback play. He has come up with 1 interception and 9 tackles though in the rare opportunities where the ball comes his way. Hopefully he's able to return from this injury in time for some of Colorado's biggest matchups of the season in the next few weeks against Oregon and USC, but unfortunately that seems unlikely. Another Jackson State transfer who has made plays in the defensive backfield for Colorado is Cam Silman-Craig. He was first team All-Conference in the SWAC last year and played an important role in the close win over Colorado State last week. He grabbed a big interception and totaled 9 tackles and a TFL in that matchup. The final major impact Jackson State transfer is Shedeur's older brother and Coach Prime's other son, Shiloh Sanders. Shiloh is on his 3rd team after starting out at South Carolina, then heading to Jackson State to play with his father and brother. As a graduate transfer, he brings a wealth of experience to the DB room. He's been a steady playmaker so far in the 2023 season, but he was instrumental in Colorado taking down rival Colorado State last week, as he secured a big interception, forced a fumble, and registered 4 total tackles in the double overtime victory. Also notably, FCS All-American offensive lineman Tyler Brown joined the team this offseason, but had his second transfer eligibility waiver denied by the NCAA. This means that he won't be able to contribute this year, but he will be a critical piece for the Colorado offensive line in the future. Outside of Jackson State, Coach Prime was able to bring in 13 players from SEC programs, and those players have been critical in the depth of the team this season so far. Jordan Dominic was a standout for the Arkansas Razorbacks and brings a wealth of Power 5 experience with him to Boulder. Jordan has registered 16.5 sacks across 5 seasons at Georgia Tech and Arkansas. In his 6th and final year of college football eligibility, he's already established himself as a pillar on the defensive front, registering 12 tackles and a sack in 3 games. Kendrick Breedlove transferred in from Ole Miss to provide some needed depth to the Stars in the secondary for Colorado. His playing time ticked up significantly last week when Travis Hunter left with an injury. Breedlove stepped in and racked up 5 tackles in his absence. With Hunter out for at least a couple more weeks, Breedlove will be depended on to play a larger role than initially expected early on this year. Safety Miles Slusher came over from Arkansas with Dominic this offseason and impressed in spring and fall camp. He had a huge performance against TCU in the opener, securing 6 solo tackles, including a game-sealing stop on 4th down to secure the victory. He has missed the past 2 games against Nebraska and Colorado State, so his return will be a huge value add to this defense. Sophomore transfer defensive lineman Amari McNeil had a big game against Colorado State last week, racking up 2 TFLs, including a critical sack that forced a punt. He didn't get many snaps in the first 2 appearances of the year, but last week's performance should earn him some more time on the field going forward. Deion Sanders was once the face of the program at Florida State during some of their most successful seasons in program history in the 80s. He ruffled some feathers at his alma mater this offseason when he corrected a reporter who suggested that he was a Knoll.
Those Hall of Famers were all Hurricanes like myself.
Yeah.
And you're a Knoll, my friend.
No. Actually, do you know where I graduated from? Yeah. Who said that? You know everything. She didn't know that. They didn't know that. Tell them again, where did I graduate? I graduated from HBCU. So I'm a who?
Well, you're still a Knoll.
I'm a who? I thought it's where you graduate from, isn't it? Why you keep calling me that? It goes to where I graduated from. I'm a HBCU grad.
And you're okay with all those?
His relationship with FSU is only further complicated by his bringing 5 Florida State players in through the transfer portal. These players have mostly served as veteran depth, but cornerback Amarion Cooper is the exception. He's been a steady starter opposite Travis Hunter at cornerback, where he's been nearly just as difficult to throw against. He has 12 tackles so far this season, and against Nebraska, he allowed only 1 completion in coverage. Beyond the SEC and Florida State, 7 other Power 5 conference transfers migrated to Boulder this offseason. Many of these guys have contributed steadily, including Clemson transfer Levante Bentley and former Iowa tight end Elijah Yelverton. The most notable of this group, though, is Colorado's new punter, Mark Fassett. He joined the team from Louisville this offseason and has handled all of the Buffs' punting duties so far in 2023. He's averaged a solid 44 yards per punt on all 12 of the team's attempts this season. Other than Bassett, these guys were primarily brought in for depth and have played important roles on special teams up to this point. A surprisingly deep source of talent for Colorado this season has come from Group of 5 squads. 2 former South Florida wide receivers, Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn Jr., have become favorite targets of Shedeur Sanders in this offense. Weaver has been a dominant number 1 receiver, putting up 386 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on 25 catches. Horn isn't far behind, snagging 26 passes for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. These 2 former American Conference stars pair with Travis Hunter to make arguably the strongest wide receiver room in all of college football, outside of Columbus, Ohio. Massive Kent State transfer Savion Washington has held down the starting right tackle spot so far in 2023. The 6'8", 320-pounder has been a rare bright spot on an otherwise struggling offensive line. Perhaps the highest profile Group of 5 transfer the Buffs brought in this year was former Houston running back Alton McCaskill. McCaskill brings a lot of accolades with him, as he won last year's American Conference Rookie of the Year award and was rated a top 10 transfer running back in this year's portal class. He is yet to make an appearance for Colorado as he deals with a nagging ACL injury, but all indications point to Alton making his debut this week against Oregon. If he can bring the same explosive playability with him to Boulder that he had at Houston, this offense is only going to get better. Beyond these guys, a number of developmental players are waiting in the wings from G5 schools. There will be a lot of guys from this group who will make an impact next season and even farther in the future. Digging deep in the transfer portal, Coach Prime tapped into the lower tiers of college football to bring in 9 players from the FCS level or lower, not to include his players that he brought along from Jackson State. Most of these guys are just along for the ride and enjoying the chance to play in a Power 5 conference on special teams or in spot snaps. A couple of standouts have carved out some serious roles for themselves though, including offensive guard Landon Beebe and defensive lineman Shane Cokes. Beebe comes from Missouri State and has played extensively up front for the Buffs. He has the versatility to play any of the interior O-line positions. Dartmouth transfer Shane Cokes has been regularly praised for his leadership and is a fixture of the defensive line rotation early this season. As a nose guard, he's unlikely to fill up the stat sheet, but all indications are that he has been performing well in his role and opening opportunities for his teammates on the defensive side of the ball. These players obviously didn't have super high expectations initially, but they have by far exceeded them through the first quarter of the 2023 season. In closing, this transfer class has obviously already overperformed. Surprisingly, we've seen a lot less freshmen contribute than many of us probably expected, and that is due entirely to the fact that these transfers have proven themselves capable of leading this team. A lot of college football fans expected to see Cormani McClain play early, but the depth of the defensive backfield has left no space for the star freshman to contribute this early. Freshman running back Dylan Edwards has been a weapon on the offense so far, but it's unclear if his role will be diminished upon Alton McCaskill's return. Freshman 4-star receivers Omarion Miller and Adam Hopkins have yet to record receptions. This is not a slight to the recruiting class, as the Buffs are undefeated and have taken down last year's national runner-up TCU along the way. This team is legit, and they only stand to get better as they continue to get back to full strength, and Coach Prime finds more and more talent through the transfer portal and from the high school ranks. This team is here to stay and will be indefinitely, unless or until Coach Sanders chooses to pursue a higher profile job. Things are looking good for the Buffaloes in Boulder, and they should stay that way for the foreseeable future.